let's talk about some of the ways that I guess are harder sometimes to talk about because of the shame they bring. But I would love to look at some of the ways that those traumas do play out when a man hasn't yet been able to turn inwards and really meet those dark parts. How might they be showing up in a man's life?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. If we've suffered trauma in our childhood, we're most likely to live in a place of survival in life.
Hmm.
Being in a place of survival has meant for me, I can't talk to everyone, that I'm have been relatively numb around emotions. The
Mm.
only emotion I showed before doing my own personal work was anger, and uh, I would suppress any feelings of sadness, any feelings of fear, any tenderer or more gentle feelings. I would suppress all those because being in a place of survival, I did not feel that I could be vulnerable or that I could show any form of vulnerability to the world. So what that means is the part of me that fights for myself and fights for survival and to stay safe in the world is exaggerated. So a man in this place might be looked at as being a bit of a bully in some ways, always fighting for himself, quite hard, pushing endlessly, trying to get his own way, and being hard to reach in a gentler, more loving way. That's
Mm, thank
that's
you. Hmm.
yeah. I've got a few, if you don't mind, for a second. Um,
Can I just
uh,
name
yeah.
something that just, it was funny because you know how you can hear similar things said over and over and over again, and then suddenly you hear something, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to quite do justice to this in words, but there was something about the way you said that about being numb that just like it brought tears to my eyes hearing you say it, and I don't know why. I heard something different in the way you said it. What came to mind was how it's a really common refrain I hear from women these days where they'll talk about, and I think this is a kind of coming into consciousness for women about what they want in a man, what they want in a relationship. And I hear over and over again this notion of a man not being emotionally available
Hmm.
and wanting more of that, in quote marks,
Hmm.
from a man. And there was something about the way you spoke about that numbness, and I
Mm.
just felt the, oh gosh, like of course, that's not going to feel safe for a man, and that numbness is going to be the armor he wears, and then that's going to be made wrong because he's not going to feel emotionally available to the woman he's in relationship with. So I just wanted to share that while it's fresh because I felt that in a way that I haven't in the past.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I want to say my numbness was not just a result of a lot of trauma in my childhood. My numbness was even more a result of growing up in a very patriarchal, hard,
Mm,
masculine world. And in the
mhm,
hard masculine world I lived in, boys could not show sadness and could not show fear, couldn't show softness, not even gentleness, really. And if we did, it
mm,
would entail heavy duty bullying and a lot of difficulty surviving in in our um, in our boyhood. So uh, a lot of men from my generation had to, for survival reasons, even if there wasn't a lot of trauma around, harden up and not be sad, not be emotional, not let tears show ever, never
mhm.
show fear in the face of bullying or other men. And that meant that often for a lot of us, anger was the only thing we could show. And I know for myself, instead of fear, showed anger. Instead of sadness, I showed anger. And I really was not really available in relationship because I was truly numb, and the parts of me that are needed in relationship were not available to me and not available to my partner. And so I wasn't really present in relationships. And I know to a degree, that is a common thing for a lot of men who try to be there in relationship, but if they haven't done their personal work to rescue their emotions and bring them back to life, or to be able to feel fear again, or even to be able to feel joy and love again
Mm.
without having done their work to bring those back to life, we can end up seeming to be somewhat unavailable and a bit half dead in relationship and even a bit half dead in life.
Mm. So I'm aware I interrupted you. You're about to, I think, give some examples. Would you like to return to that?
Mm. So what survival means is I end up fighting far too heavily for myself in an exaggerated way, and so that can mean I try and make the whole of my life for myself. I'm a bit self-obsessed, a bit narcissistic, pushing way too hard for what I need. Um, uh, Looking after myself as number one, not truly caring for the people around me, not really feeling empathy for them, perhaps using people a bit to get my needs met, to advance in life. Um, if we look around us, there's a lot of resurgence of that sort of masculinity, self-orientated, uh, using the world to get what I want, to climb to the top of the pile just for me. There's a lot of that in the world, and there's a lot of trauma behind that sort of behavior. And then there's a third place, which is really dark inside men, where we have a part of us that holds our darkness and inner violence. And in a way, if we're so used to it and have been around it for a lot of our childhood, this part of us remains alive inside us in adulthood. And in my sort of work, I call this part the predator. And
Mm.
it's the part of me that wants to hurt the world, hurt others, um, that wants to rise to violence just like that, that sees others being predatory or dark or violent, even if they're not necessarily. It's like an inner part of me got attuned to violence and danger. And it's that being affected by that as a child is a bit like being bitten by a vampire, where it gets inside of us and it becomes strong. And part of that is wanting to act that out onto the world as well.
Mm.
And it's a very dangerous part of us. And a lot of in my work with men, all the men I work with, we seek to identify this part inside of us that wants to punish or hurt or abuse the world. And we get to know this part of ourselves very carefully and um, bring this part to light and to our heart so that we can hold this part of us and stop this part of us acting out on the world. And then the
Mm.
last bit is a bit like because we can get too numb, uh, we can only access and start to open up maybe through drink, through drugs, or things like that. And so, with a lot of trauma inside us, we are vulnerable to addictions, to booze, to alcohol, to just a lot of men in this place can only really feel something in partnership through sex rather than through feelings. And so we can be vulnerable to addiction and to messing up our life by being far too orientated towards drink and drugs and things like that in order to try and feel alive.